So we won't have the pleasure of seeing either one of them.
No, not tonight. Not tonight. Well,
Okay.
Next time, maybe I'll see if I get them on camera.
Good.
Okay, we are
live.
We are live.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year to all. Hope things will be getting better and we'll actually see one another one time. I want to thank Josephine and Dorothy for diligently learning more and more about Zoom and webinars and doing a great job. And I can't remember exactly when Anish was a fellow in the office, but he did lots of work on the 65th Street corridor and other things. And as part of the discussion, we all realize that when we pick up the zoning text, it's like you scratch your head and where does the Bay Ridge Special District fit in? And he volunteered to do a customized zoning textbook for us tailored to Community Board 10. And I've had a look at it, and one of the things that struck me is it mostly happens in T&T, where the Traffic and Transportation is given a presentation by the Department of Transportation, and they give us say, here, this is an intersection just like yours. It's absolutely nothing like ours. So taking the zoning and applying it on a very, very detailed level to our community was a challenge and has been well done. And he will give us a presentation this evening.
That's great. Anish, so maybe we could share, you want to share the screen and just, maybe we could go through some of the pages together?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So we have taken the most common issues we would deal with in zoning and land use meetings, and starting with the Euler process. It's basically an introduction to types of zoning and land use applications the city of New York, or basically the planning regime, deals with in New York. So non-ULERP applications, ULERP application types, and the colored ones are the ones we have introduced in the booklet. So zoning text amendments, enclosed sidewalk cafes, zoning map amendments, and special permits. And it's a brief overview of all the types of work the New York City planning department does. Then introduction to the ULERP process. What is the timeline of the process? What is the process? What all applications are decided through the review process and stuff. And then basically the decision timeline, that what all departments the one ULERP process goes through, and what are their actions, and if they approve or reject the process, what happens next, and so on. So if the CPC approves applications, if the CPC disapproves applications, and then basically a small introduction to what is the community board's role and action as the New York City defines in the ULERP process. So the community board should hold a public hearing and submit recommendations, may ask for waivers. And the rules about the notice and conduct of a public hearing. So it has to be published in the city record. It has to be published in the city planning calendar. The applicant has to be notified. The applicant must notify the owners, the neighbors. The hearings must be publicized enough, and things like that. So a brief introduction to every part of the process, and what is the community board's role in fixing a meeting and then deciding on the application. So if should we like review the chapters one by one, or we would take the comments like at the last for the whole booklet?
What do you think, Josh? I think you could continue to go through it. We'll
I
just,
think we'll,
Okay.
yeah, we'll go through it, and if
Okay.
we'll
if anyone has a question, we could jump in.
comments come up, we'll try to keep them focused and keep it moving.
Okay. And then about the sidewalk cafes, what are the type of sidewalk cafes? What are the rules to judge a sidewalk cafe application? So, what are the zoning areas in which such cafes are permitted? And then in District 10, where are the present cafes? Is a cafe permitted on the street on which it is located? And just a second. And then physical criteria is common. So no portion of the cafe should swing outside the designated exterior parameters, and how the access should be planned. It should not. Yeah, it should not restrict the access to fire exits or to the doors, and then the same for enclosed cafes, the same for unenclosed cafes. And what are the location and clearance requirement? What all distances have to be maintained from various features on the street, like traffic lights, like telephone booths, or like lamp posts stuff. And then what are the rules to be followed by operating the cafes? Basically, all the things on which the community board would discuss with the applicant, like in a sidewalk cafe application process, all are like mentioned briefly here. So, do they have the license to serve liquor? Are they maintaining cleanliness and orderliness? Are the sign displays in order with what the city says, and things like that? And then a list of sidewalk cafes operating in District 10 right now. I took this from they had a portal sometime back
Yes.
with the New York City. I took it from there, and they also have pending review applications on that portal. Then that I took some case studies from the past meetings about sidewalk cafes. So the case of Fourth Avenue, where the board was renewing a license of an enclosed sidewalk cafe. So what questions did the board ask, and how did the owner respond to that? So, for example, would there be sufficient space left for walking after the owner like starts a cafe? How would the cafe impact the ease of access to the fire escape? How would the owner access the cellar door? So things like this. And then like a brief page about NYC's Open Street Initiative, because it was like contextual at that time. I don't know if it
Yes.
is still running.
Yeah, so I think that this whole section here, I appreciate you putting in the Open Street Initiative because, right now the city is going to make this permanent.
Mhm.
I think they're working on the details, but these are what the rules are right now, and I appreciate you putting this here.
Yeah.
Although we're not part of the review process at the current moment, we shall see what
Okay.
happens down the road.
Okay. And then about the zoning special permits.
Permits. Mhm.
So yeah, there wasn't much text to be discussed here, so I just started with the case studies itself.
Okay.
So for example, special permit to reduce number of required parking spaces, and what did the board members ask? For example, would the reduction in number of mandatory parking spaces impact the traffic conditions around the area? Will there be parking for patrons, or like who all will park there? Where will be the access to these spaces located? And
Right.
like general questions which the board asked to the owner, to just give an overview to anyone new to the committee reading this booklet. For example, special permit application to enlarge a single family residence. So does the enlargement pose adverse effect on local neighbors? Does it cause an increase in front, side, or rear yards? And how does the applicant is modifying the height of the property and things like that? And the next chapter is text change application. So like basically a brief overview of what the New York City website tells about the zoning text application, and also brief case studies about, for example, the M1 hotel text amendment, and why was it done, and then what is the result of the whole process now. Uh, Similarly, discussion regarding special British districts text amendment, and what were the issues about this, and what did the board discussed, and what is the result now of
Mhm.
that discussion. And then the spatial British district. So the area of the special British district, what all zoning changes does it provide over the existing zoning regulations imposed by the city, and why was it done basically, and then in the meanwhile in 2005 when it was amended, why was it amended, and what are the new regulations that are in place right now. And for example, it maintains the height limit and restricts maximum FAR for community facility uses, requires street tree planting for all developments, allows elevators, stair bulkheads, cooling towers. So these are some of the amendments that were done in 2005. And the main objectives of why it was put in place in the in 1970s, I guess, to preserve, protect, and maintain the existing scale and character of the community, to encourage design of properties which will be in sync with the existing character of the neighborhood, and things like that. Then the next chapter was public school sitting, and um, basically how a school site is selected, because I guess board 10 was like district 10 was short on seats for public schools, and so how the SCA finds suitable sites for new schools, what should be the minimum size of the lot, what should be the ideal location of the lot, what should be the property history. Basically the site should be clean. It if it is a brownfield sites, then adequate tests have to be done. If the lot is safe to build a school, and things like that. And how does the process goes from identifying a site to building a school. So they draw a site plan, then they put out a notice for public hearing, then they submit to the mayor and other agencies, then they send a notice to the site owner, then they negotiate with. So the whole process, like that. And then a brief overview of the design considerations they require while building new schools, and what are the different type of schools. So for example, charter schools, and an example of an upcoming mixed use development. Then what is the current number of vacancies or shortages in the public school system in New York, and what is the current scenario for District 10? I guess it's a misprint here. Should be District. And then again a case study of a public hearing regarding the new school. Uh, so for example, what are the common issues that the board members or the public raises? Where will be the school parking for the school buses? Would they impact the parking for the local residents near the school site? How will the increased traffic affect parking for residents? How does the SCA plan on managing additional traffic? Basically, most of the issues were regarding traffic management due to the added traffic of school buses and parents who come to drop and pick up their children. And then what were the solutions the board members suggested to SCA? For example, taking school buses off the street, no parking from 7 a.m. to 4 a.m. near the school, and solutions like that. Then in the last, there is a brief like overview of the common terms which are used in the zoning and land use process. So these are alphabetically sorted terms. For example, base height. What are the building types defined by NYC zoning code? What are the bulk regulations? What is a city map? What is a commercial overlay? And stuff like that. What is rezoning? And what is a special purpose district? Or what are use groups? What is a zoning district? So a brief, like a definition sort of overview of every common term. And I tried to be contextual to like District 10. So the pictures and the examples are from District 10, most of them. So for example, in defining building types, here's a picture of the semi-detached building typology in Bay Ridge, houses on the 81st Street, and like showing what is a semi-detached type and how does it benefit like the neighborhood and the residents. Bulk regulations, seller, what is a city map, why do we do a commercial overlay on in a residential district, and then basically the definitions of common terms like a floor area ratio. So like I remember a question was raised by a new member that time in like one of the meetings, that thing as basic as a floor area ratio. So what is it and how do we use it? Then what is a quality housing program? What is rezoning? So yeah, stuff like that. And yeah, what are special purpose district? What are all the use groups defined by NYC zoning? And I will also include like links to each one of them where the NYC zoning websites mentions them in like much more detail, so that if someone has to read more about that, they could just click on the link and go to the website. And then what are zoning districts, zoning maps, and then a list of the list of current zoning and land use committee members. So this is obviously not the whole list. These are just the names I could find on like the website. So, yeah. So any comments on?
I have a comment.
Mhm.
This is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
I think that this should be mandatory reading for everybody who gets on the community board, and that we should give them a test before they start, because I tell you, it would really help a lot in many of the meetings that we've been to. And I think Anish did a very good job. I'm very pleased with this.
Beautiful job, Amish.
Yes,
I think this is fantastic. I think that it is something, as Steve said, that is needed. Board members and volunteers, we don't all come with training. And so this is a fantastic tool. And, even for longstanding board members, zoning's, as I'm sure Anish really knows, it's very complicated, it's convoluted, it's not always easy to understand. And this really does a lovely job of boiling it down and making it, it's like Cliff's Notes, for zoning. And this is great. This is wonderful. And I thank you so much for doing this. Just great job.
But comprehensive Cliff Notes.
Yes. And I think everybody will give it a look over, but I'm very impressed.
Yeah, I think we're, I think there's just a couple of small, tiny changes in this that I'll email you. Maybe we could help just revise before we post it, and maybe even print some out. But I think this is going to be very helpful to not only zoning and land use committee members, as Lori said, but to the entire board. Because I think it's one of the biggest learning curves for new board members. There's a lot, a lot to zoning and a lot to understand. in
Yeah,
reviewing different applications.
The sidewalk cafe stuff was useful for me. Like there was a lot of stuff in there that I was familiar with, but that was something that I knew was definitely a weakness for me. I just understanding like the clearances and like what, like the mailbox clearances and just all those like random things that I just wasn't familiar with. So I was glad you were able to incorporate that.
I thought that section was very important. There were things that I think I assume that Department of Buildings and City Planning are looking at that carefully before it comes to us, but now I will look at them all much, much more carefully. So it's been very helpful to me.
And I think what I like too is that it really is, it gives the special cases that are specific to Board 10 with photos and diagrams. It makes it very, very easy. And I like it a lot. So thank you again.
I also appreciate the explanation of the process. Oftentimes when we are giving our input, we're not always clear on, wait a minute, where's the various agency, or where is the applicant in their process? Our timing sometimes is very important, and this does help clarify the process and the timing of the board's input. When you're looking at something from a pragmatic approach. So I really like that too. In terms of, having all the different categories, I think you really you really covered everything very well, in order to make this something that is very practical and useful, and not just, a good read, in your spare time.
And the way it was put together with the pictures, the diagrams, it's a difficult subject even in this format, but it makes it much easier reading. Could you imagine reading through this without Anish having laid out the way he did? Really excellent job, beautiful.
I also think it'd be a wonderful piece that, when people are going to be affected by a zoning change, they're frightened, and because they don't understand the process. So it could be a great handout for people who, when they come in and they don't understand it and want to know more. And so I think it's got multiple uses, and I think it's excellent.
Thanks so much. I'm glad it's so helpful for all of us.
May I interject just for a minute, please? Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Anish, thank you so much. You made this much simpler. I remember coming onto the committee and being completely lost. You've taken the technical speak and made it much more understandable. Is it possible to make a small suggestion? One of the things that I struggled with were the acronyms. And is there a way to make like a quick glossary? Just as I was sitting here looking before, when I read it through it, I started jotting down the acronyms, and then I saw a whole bunch more that I missed. Is there a way, even where you have the list of common terms, even if you put in parentheses next to those, I don't know if that's difficult or not, but acronym speak it's challenging. But thank you. Yeah, definitely. Like we thought about it earlier, and I somehow missed it. I also think we should put it in the start, like a glossary of terms.
Yes. I think that's an excellent suggestion.
A subgroup of common terms, common acronyms.
And uncommon ones.
Barbara has her hand raised?
Yes, I think it's terrific. It should be given to all board members, all prospective board members. And you did a wonderful job of synthesizing lots of various elements into one format. So it's terrific.
And you've got a tough audience here, Anish.
Yes.
Well, I do agree with what Stephanie said about the abbreviations. Often when we're speaking, we don't say floor area ratio. We say, oh, the FAR, or, even ULURP itself, is an abbreviation. So I think, even if you just put that into the glossary, in alphabetical order, so that we don't have you do so much more work.
No, it's okay.
Which we're very thankful for. It is true and especially when we are having presentations, because the people who are presenting are far more comfortable with the terminology. They use it every day. And so they do throw around the acronym so much more, and some of us are scrambling to say, what is that? What was that word? Or, whatever they said. So I do agree that would be very helpful if we can,
Yeah,
ask
sure.
any
Yeah,
more of you.
yeah. That's a good suggestion. We should definitely put that in. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Any more comments on like any of the text or
No,
anything we
just
should add?
applause, just applause.
Mhm.
Just a yay.
Oh,
thing.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
So Anish, we really appreciate it. So I'll send you an email and, we'll converse via email.
Yeah.
But again, really thank you so much for your help.
I would just
Thank you.
add a note. Your map skills are excellent, and the way you broke out the need for schools in Community Board 10 with all those red dots and what each red dot stands for is very impressive and very important for all of us. There's too much red on that map.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to say on it mapped out the need for school seats in District Community Board 10.
There's a booklet by SCA which has more of these maps and
Oh,
like in much more detail. So I can also put that in if that's helpful.
Bob, you have another question?
I was just going to say, at some point, this would be wonderful if this were written in a written format. But I
Oh,
know it's
physical, to
hard now.
physically have a copy of it before you.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. I think we're going to print out some copies.
Yes.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yes.
Agreed.
It would be great if we had it like at a meeting where you had a lot of people coming in and you're going to have technical conversations
Mhm.
so that the audience can, can follow along or at least look it up in the glossary there. That would be great.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Thank you. We'll get back to you, Anish.
Okay, thank you. It was nice seeing you all. Should I leave the meeting?
Yeah,
Yeah.
listen, Anish, we appreciate you being here. I don't know if the members heard, but we know it's very early where you are, so we appreciate you coming, but you can absolutely leave. We have another
Sure.
matter on the agenda, so.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank
So
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Aye.
Are you up for the day or going back to bed?
Oh, he left already.
Okay.
Where was Amish?
He
In
was in
India.
India. He had his sister's wedding.
He was in India?
Yes.
Amazing. Amazing. And
5:30
what
That
time?
is
a.m.
dedication.
Dedicated 5:30 a.m.
Oh, amazing.
Have to say thank you to him again, just for
Yeah,
that.
I definitely will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely will. Okay, so item number 2.
Item number 2 is a discussion of the Department of City Planning is proposing a zoning text amendment that hotels in C districts and commercial districts, I'm not sure if all of them, I don't have it. It's still in the process. But that hotels in commercial district be subject to special permits. This is something that the community board actually discussed 2 years ago when the city did a zoning text amendment to say that hotels in manufacturing zones would need a special permit. And there was a concern then that with restrictions, with making it a little more difficult to do hotels in M districts, manufacturing districts, there would be more of an interest in doing them in commercial zones. And I think we have seen that. So this is very, very early in the discussion with the Department of City Planning. There is a meeting tomorrow if anyone is interested. I'm just going to listen. I have nothing to say. They're still in the scoping phase. But we know that this has been a very serious issue in our community and for our committee in the past few months. And I think we should support the discussion of a special permit in the C districts for hotels. It would give us extra leverage.
Yeah, I
What
just
would be-
want to,
what-
I'm sorry.
Just
go
want to
ahead,
know
Steve.
what would be included within, I didn't get a chance to read it. What would be included in the requirements for the in the special district? But not the special district, in the special permit.
Right. So the, I put up the draft scope of work, so it would require a special permit, meaning a community hearing for any new hotels, motels, botels in C1 through C1, C2, C4, C5, C6, C8, and mixed use properties. The similar to what was done in the M1 district, there would be review of bulk and size. I'll just put up here. The scoping process is intended to focus the EIS on issues that are most pertinent to the proposed action. And I guess similar to what was done in the M1, it would really look at environmental impacts. It would take a look at transportation, traffic, street. You know, it would really give a general overview of when siting of a hotel, a real thorough community review, which is currently not the case. Currently, it's, as we know from 9114 Fifth Avenue, it's, you know, as of right in most commercial districts. And that was a concern that was raised when we were reviewing the M1. The notion was that approving the citywide text amendment for the M1 would then leave any hotel developers to find the C districts more attractive, which is why in our motion back in 2018, we had asked for just what this is, to expand the citywide text amendment into the C districts.
Following that same line of reasoning, I'm thinking, so now they, you know, because of that, what they did back then with the no, they can't do it in the M1. If they pass this, what areas are left for them? So then where does this new constraint happen? Like where is this going to drive the hotels to look for next if they were to pass this? Because it seems like, I mean, how many more zones are left for them to be allowed to place in?
Well, I think that's the objective. I think the objective is when citing a hotel is to have an opportunity for the community to provide input.
Okay.
It's not to say that, yeah, it's not to say they're not allowed, but
always have a say in anywhere it's placed. Essentially, it sounds like.
yes, that's exactly.
The other change here, Joe, is also now when the city does the EIS or the developer, they basically figure out what they want in the EIS. Now the community boards and public will have a say as to what should go into the EIS, which is very important.
Right. I wanted to share also, I'm going to stop this share, is Councilmember Brannan, before the meeting started, did send over his statement, which I didn't have the opportunity to share with everyone. Hold on one second, see if I could do this. I'm getting good at this. He wanted me to share this with the committee tonight, which is, you know, pretty much his statement. And I don't know if you want me to read it or I'll just kind of summarize. I mean, one of the main paragraphs here is that while the hotel industry is critical to our city, we are experiencing a citywide housing crisis unlike ever before, and it'll only get worse after the pandemic. We have a very real need for housing. and only so much space to build. Here in my district, the last 2 times that a hotel was planned as of right, the community was in a total uproar, not only because of the impact that hotels can have on communities, but because there's nowhere near enough housing in the neighborhood. And residents were clear that if there is available space, first and foremost, affordable housing should be considered. A special permit requirement will give local residents and their duly elected representatives a stronger voice in not having to fight to ensure housing development is an option. And I think he goes on to talk a little bit about the nuances of, some issues associated with hotels. Over the past decade, there have been endless, well-documented problems caused by the notorious Prince Hotel. So a special permit would give, communities also an ability to put conditions on a special permit, to meet with the developer, to create that relationship. All the things we pretty much covered when we looked at the C8 district, the M1 citywide, when we looked at it back in 2018. The proposed citywide hotel text amendment would ensure that hotels are consistent with the character of the neighborhoods and would discourage as-of-right development of hotels without any consideration given to their overall impact of quality of life. It would enable to steer hotel development in a manner that promotes the overall success, profitability, and recovery of the city's world-class hotel industry. Although the full text of the amendment has yet to be released to the public, a review of the draft scope of work shows that the Department of City Planning is taking a measured, thoughtful approach to the issues surrounding hotel development. And I don't know, I'll also bring up on our screen while we have everyone, since I'm getting so good at this, our letter that we did in
2018.
In 2018, yes.
Which letter is this?
This is the letter that we did. Can you see it?
Not yet, Joe.
Hold on a sec.
It was the letter that we sent to the Department of City Planning regarding the proposed M1 hotel text amendment.
It was a board meeting and it was in
June
2018.
June 2018.
Yes. Okay, so here's the letter. This was specific to the proposed M1 hotel text amendment. So we had the board meeting June 18, 2018. Members voted overwhelmingly to support the recommendation of the Zoning and Land Use Committee as follows: to approve the application to create a special permit for hotel motel applications in M1 district and to broaden the scope of the special permit so it is not limited to M1 areas, but is truly citywide and covers all manufacturing and commercial districts where hotel motels presently can be built as of right. The Zoning and Land Use Committee believes this measure is important because the addition of a hotel motel anywhere in the city can trigger negative impacts to an area, especially when some of the hotels motels are built in districts within close proximity to residential areas and other community resources. The committee believes all hotels motels should be examined on a case-by-case basis. Again, giving the opportunity for public comment. And I think that vote was...
As usual, we were way ahead of everybody else.
We were ahead of it. In fact, at this meeting, I'll refresh everyone's memory. We talked about our frustration and we kind of asked the city if they would consider limiting or creating a special permit specific to the Special Bay Ridge District. And city planning got back to us and said, oh, wait, that's way too expensive. You'll need an EIS. It won't happen. But they didn't say that this was kind of in the works. So I think there were a lot of boards, community boards in 2018 that shared our viewpoint that it shouldn't just be limited to the M1, that it is important to have community dialogue in the development of hotels for, a host of reasons. And I was surprised to see it come through as a citywide text amendment, but nonetheless, I think the question for the committee tonight is, even though it's preliminary, do we want to submit a comment about the scoping? They are accepting public comments, the Department of City Planning, up until February 1st. When I spoke to the councilman earlier, he had mentioned that he wanted to, he was very supportive, thought it was a good idea, and that's why he was submitting comments early on, even before the ULURP clock begins. So pretty much why we decided to put it on tonight's agenda, to kind of get everyone's feedback and see if what your thoughts were about commenting at this stage.
I think we should just, I'm sorry, I should have raised my hand.
Yes, no,
That's
okay.
fine.
I just think that we should comment on it, and basically just saying that in accordance with our prior, and just point out that we had asked this, and I think it's important to tell them that we have previously stated that we thought it should be extended to the commercial, and that we absolutely believe that this is something that is worth exploring further.
Is that a motion, Steve? I'm just curious. Is that a motion?
I was doing it in the form of discussion, kind of a pre-motion
I was-
discussion, so we know what to move on exactly. I'm just saying that if we do it, it's important to point out that it's not something that we have just all of a sudden thought of. That's something that it really came to our attention. We brought it to their attention. We're glad that they're doing it, and we support this kind of and we support this. If somebody wants to put that in the form of a motion, I'm all for it.
Let's thank them for following our 2018 letter.
That's right. to the T.
Hey, Joe, I noticed though in I think it was C3 and C7, they are not included. Do you know why?
That's a good question. I don't know why. You know, we don't have C3 and C7 in Board 10, so I'm not familiar with it. I'm not in the office too. I can't quickly look at it. I don't have my book, but I'll find out
Yeah, because
before Monday.
because it's citywide, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no big deal.
I have a question, and it's about these other zones that aren't involved with this. Because this is part of the EIS, part of what we're doing here is trying to figure out if there's other things we want them to look at as part of the environmental impact statement, right? So maybe that could be one of the questions, like why were those zones not included as part of the proposal? I'm just out of curiosity. I mean, even though we don't have those zones in this district, I would like to know why.
Okay.
And also this issue is very timely, especially with hotels in certain parts of the city now. So it's really relevant.
Well, can I make a suggestion that we, in fact, I would move that we support this and leave it up to Josephine. I know she has nothing else to do. And make it, you know, in order to write the letter, okay, because I don't think that we can write it by committee, but I say generally that we support this and include within it that we've supported it for a long time.
I just took a quick look about C3 and
C3,
C7,
yeah, I was
if
just
I could
looking
just
to-
chime in, yeah.
Yes.
So C3 is primarily waterfront and for boating and waterfront activities. And C7, so that I think it mentioned there's
Amusement parks.
yeah, C7 is amusement park, so that would really concern like Coney Island. And C3 would be more, they said there's zoning for that, like in Mill Basin, but we do not have it within our district, but I guess that they were accepting waterfront or amusement park areas.
So we have a motion, I believe, to support the proposal and to include in that that we have supported this since 2018, and we look forward to hearing more. And
I
just
would
we can
include with
swap
it-
that out.
I would include with that what the chair just said.
Sorry, Josephine.
But it's so are you saying to, just a clarification on the motion, are you saying to put that in as our commentary during this comment period, very preliminary, you know, in the very preliminary phases of this, but the comment period that expires February 1st? We're asking to put that in.
Yes.
That is precisely what I'm
Yes.
saying.
Yes.
When is our board meeting next week, right?
Yeah,
Monday,
yes.
the
Monday.
25th.
Right. So then we'd have time to do it then. Yes.
Mhm.
Is
I
there
need
a
a second.
second?
Is there a second? Thank you, Barbara.
Okay.
Very good.
We have to vote now. All in favor?
Oh, okay.
Okay. It was unanimous.
I don't know. I thought this was going to be a much longer meeting. I'm not disappointed, but
Oh, well, thank you all.
thank you all.
Actually, it was just long enough because I think I hear Helen finishing the dishes from dinner.
Perfect.
Very timely.
Yes.
Oh, it's nice to see everyone.
Nice to
Yes.
see everyone. Thank you
Everybody.
very much.
See you
Good
on
luck,
Monday.
everyone.
Everyone,
Be well.
See you on
Okay.
Monday.
See you Monday night.
See you
Monday.